do really strange things in our sleep. Many people snore or toss and turn and disturb their partners frequently throughout the night. Or maybe you're like me and you talk in your sleep, usually about something Sims or Tropico related after I've been playing most of the day. But some people sleepwalk, which most of the time is annoying but not harmful, doing things like wandering around the house, trying to feed the cat at 2 a.m., or just standing creepily in one spot for an hour. But today, we'll be discussing the first successful sleepwalking defense in a murder trial. This is a brief history of Albert Tirrell, the sleepwalking killer. As always, this episode of A Brief History contains graphic content and may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Albert Tirrell was born sometime in 1824 to moderately wealthy parents Leonard and Abby Tirrell in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Not much is known about Albert's childhood, but due to his family's wealth, we can assume that he led a better than usual childhood in the early 1800s Boston area. In February of 1843, when he was only 18 years old, Albert married his wife, Orient Humphrey Tirrell, and the pair ended up having 2 children over the next few years of their married lives. The names of their children are unknown. Albert, unfortunately, was known around the area to be unfaithful to his wife Orient, and was known to frequent Boston brothels. At one of these brothels, Albert met the beautiful Maria Bickford. Maria was from Maine and had married her husband James when she was merely 16 years old. Unfortunately, Maria and James lost their firstborn child as an infant, and the inconsolable Maria was invited to spend some time in Boston with family to help her move past this tragic incident. Maria took to life in the big city. Boston was a dream compared to the small-town Maine area she had come from. Eventually, she did return to Maine to be with her husband, but found herself exceptionally bored of life in the Pine Tree State and scurried back off to Boston alone, where she started working at a brothel as a prostitute to fund her life in the city. Maria's husband James eventually came down to Boston to find and be reunited with his wife, but became enraged at finding out that she had been working as a prostitute and left her, returning to Maine by himself. Maria bounced from brothel to brothel and eventually became acquainted with Albert Tirrell. Despite Albert still being married to Orient, him and Maria traveled around frequently, posing as a married couple, and were said to have a volatile relationship, filled with many arguments and lovers' quarrels. Albert squandered thousands of dollars of inheritance money on Maria, and became infuriated when she said she would not leave her life as a prostitute. And why would she? Maria had high-paying clients, an expensive wardrobe, and her own maid. Albert's treatment of Maria began disintegrating further, to the point where Maria even wrote to her estranged husband James for help. Albert and Maria supposedly ended their relationship in June of 1845, but were so drawn to each other that they continued to meet. Just 4 months later, Albert Tirrell seemed to have hit his breaking point, and on October 27, 1845, just before 5 a.m., Albert entered Maria's bedroom in a seedy boarding house owned by a Mr. and Mrs. Joel Lawrence. Shortly after, Mrs. Lawrence heard a scream, followed instantly by a loud thud coming from Maria's upstairs bedroom, and then saw someone rushing out the door and away from the boarding house. The Lawrences made their way upstairs and found 21-year-old Maria lying on the floor with her bed on fire. After putting out the fire, the couple turned their attention to Maria and found she had been brutally murdered. Maria's throat had been cut from ear to ear so deeply that her windpipe and jugular vein had been severed almost entirely. It is said that the wound was at least 3 inches deep and 6 inches across. A razor was found at the foot of Maria's now charred bed and was covered in blood, obviously the murder weapon. Also found at the scene was a blood-covered vest of a man and a cane. Albert Tirrell not only fled the brothel that morning, but immediately began planning to flee the country. Albert left Boston to his home in Weymouth, and then immediately left for Montreal, Canada. While in Montreal, he purchased a ticket for a boat traveling to Liverpool, England. but was unable to make the trip due to bad weather. Not wanting to stay in one spot for long, Albert traveled from Montreal to New York City, and finally to New Orleans, where police arrested him on December 5, 1845. Albert's parents hired famed lawyer and former Massachusetts Senator Rufus Choate as a defense attorney for their son. While on the run, news got out about Maria's murder, and public opinion was skewed away from Albert, who the public instantly believed was guilty because of him being on the run. But as more information came out specifically about Maria Bickford's career choice, public opinion began to change in favor of Albert Tirrell. But Albert's relationship with Maria had been well documented, from eyewitnesses testifying to their sordid affair to the Lawrences being able to place Albert at the scene of the crime. The circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. But despite that, no one had actually witnessed the murder. And this was what former Senator Rufus Choate clung to during the trial, as well as his more creative defense, that Albert Tirrell was a chronic sleepwalker and had committed the murder while sleepwalking, and therefore could not be held liable for his actions while asleep. This was the first time in American history that sleepwalking would be used as a defense for a crime, but Rufus Choate was confident he could make it work. After introducing his new line of defense, many witnesses were called to attest to Albert's strange nightly behavior, even claiming that he had been a chronic sleepwalker since he was just 6 years old. An expert witness, Walter Channing, the dean of Harvard Medical School, even testified that it would absolutely be possible for a sleepwalking person to get up, get dressed, commit murder, set fire to a room, and escape, all while sleeping. On the final day of the trial, Rufus Choate spent 90 minutes of his time talking about the sleepwalking, reminding the jury of Maria Bickford's less than savory career choices, and taunting the prosecution. After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury came back with a verdict of not guilty for the murder of Maria Bickford. However, Albert was still on the hook for arson, which in Boston at the time was considered a capital crime, and he was also on the hook for adultery and lascivious cohabitation. Albert was acquitted of the arson, also using the sleepwalking defense, but was charged to 3 years hard labor for adultery and lascivious cohabitation. Albert Tirrell then demanded his lawyer Rufus Choate refund half of his legal fees, since it seemed too easy for Rufus to get him off for his alleged crimes. Rufus Choate obviously refused, and Albert Tirrell lived out the rest of his life in anonymity until he died in 1880. What do you think? Did Albert Tirrell actually have an issue with sleepwalking that led him to commit this heinous crime? Or was it just an interesting enough defense with a great legal team that led him to walk free? Thank you for joining me for another episode of A Brief History. If you would like to suggest future episodes of Brief History, be sure to join the Discord linked in the description box below. Thank you also to my patrons who support this series. You are much appreciated. Don't forget to like and subscribe, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.